to the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister for Finance.
Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy Speaker. And I must admit I had to come to the table to actually read the discussion of a matter of public importance after the member for Fraser's contribution. And it is the government's moves to cut transparency, accountability and consumer protection and its impact particularly on the voters of Western Australia. And I listened carefully to the member for Fraser's contribution, as I always do, but that's why I had to come and get the actual blue paper, because I wasn't quite sure that he was actually on topic. And given the fact that all we heard from the member for Bendigo was about childcare, it's obviously an open go. We can talk about anything. But I do want to talk about something very important, and that is the carbon tax. Not mentioned in the MPI on the blue, but given the fact that everybody else is talking about everything, I'll have my turn too. And in an interview published today by the ABC, so it has to be correct, West Australian Labor MP Alana McTiernan says the federal opposition should go back to the drawing board on the mining tax. Now, the government wants to repeal the mining and carbon tax for obvious reasons to Western Australia, which is on the MPI, which Labor actually forgot to refer to. Federal opposition leader Bill Shorten obviously says Labor's policy is to support the mining tax. He says one thing in Perth, he says another thing in Canberra. But Ms McTiernan, the member for Perth, and here's the rub, says the policy implemented by former Prime Minister Julia Gillard and former Treasurer Wayne Swan, the current member for Lilly, has been ineffective. I think it would be fair to say that the mining tax hasn't done the job that it was designed to do, the member for Perth told reporters at Parliament House in Canberra. This is time to look at that again and look at what we do that in a better way. We'll be talking to state governments about how to introduce a successful mining tax. Well, the mining tax has not been a success. It's actually taken the whole budget for Labor was underpinned on the mining tax actually reaping these rivers of money which were never realised, and unfortunately so many programs which Labor put forward just haven't been able to be materialised because there was no money brought forth by the mining tax. Now, we know what Labor and the Greens are with the repeal of the carbon tax. Today, in the Senate, it was voted down 33 to 29. What a disgrace. Last September, on the 7th, we had an election where the will of the people overwhelmingly endorsed the coalition overwhelmingly to get rid of the mining and the carbon taxes. But today in the Senate we've got the Greens and Labor, that formidable duo, once again knocking back the will of the people, once again turning their backs on Australians. Labor and the Greens just don't get it. They don't get that the people of Western Australia, who actually go to the polls on April 5 to elect a new Senate, and hopefully they'll endorse the coalition overwhelmingly there, Labor and the Greens don't get that Western Australia don't want a carbon tax. They don't get that September 7 last year, that has been eradicated from the calendars of all those opposite, saw the Australian people had their say and vote for the abolition of the carbon and the mining taxes. And they don't get that the coalition does get Australian families, does get small business, which is the engine room of the Australian economy, that we do understand the impost which the carbon tax was placing on families and have a bill to reduce their electricity bills. But today, Labor and the Greens yet again said no. They're so negative. They're so negative, those on the other side. They just say no all the time. Today, Labor and the Greens sent a message to Western Australia. And I bet the people of Western Australia, they're smart people over in Western Australia, I bet they're listening. I bet you they know that this government, that this opposition, well, this government wants to get rid of the mining and carbon taxes, and that this opposition wants to continue those job-destroying, economy-crippling carbon and mining taxes. They saw from the Labor Party and the Greens today is that they don't want to work with the new government. They don't want to work with the new government. They don't want to accept the results of September 7, and they don't want to abolish the carbon and the mining taxes. But if the people of Western Australia want a strong voice, if they want a strong voice in the Senate, they need to know that they should not vote Labor and certainly not vote the Greens. They need to get on board with the coalition, get on board with the Liberal and the Nationals, and put people, good people in the Senate who will overturn these job-destroying, economy-wide crippling taxes. They have to vote for the coalition. Senator Cormann, the Minister for Finance, said that nearly 100% of all relevant Australian iron ore production takes place in the Pilbara region of Western Australia, and it's being hurt It's being hurt by the mining tax. Furthermore, WA taxpayers have been forced to pay $627 million in carbon tax last year, increasing the cost of living for families and increasing the cost of doing business in Western Australia. I say to West Australian voters, get on board, vote for the Coalition on April 5 and get rid of the mining and carbon taxes.